I am pulling up the screen share, which is here.
What's that? Yeah, should be page 5. Start Article 2, page 5.
Okay. Now you guys can choose a chair if you want. I don't think there's really any voting that we do, so we can probably just proceed. But there's no officers here, so you would have to assign a chair if that were the case.
What do you want to do? Appoint somebody? You want to use an elder of the elders?
It's up to you guys if you feel it's necessary for procedural purposes. It makes no difference to me.
What do you want to do there, Mr. Santos?
Me? You gonna put it on my shoulders?
No,
you were really good at it the other time, Ryan. You were really good at chair.
I mean, isn't this a community-based meeting here? Do we really need to have a chair?
You need somebody to be up front to say this meeting is now called to order. So it's part of the Robert's Rules of Order. So you want me to do it once it's done? That is done. It's all in Tara's hands. We're just going to follow her.
I like spreading the wealth, John. So why don't you take the lead tonight, buddy?
I'm not afraid to take the lead. I can get my Corvette right up to 110 and lead the pack. I'm not afraid.
Oh my God, guys, just decide now so we can get this show on the road.
John B. Lincoln calls the subcommittee special meeting on the subdivision of Article 2 to order. Will that be okay?
Roll call, please, sir.
All right. You're going to have to call the names off. I only got 2 people in front of me and 2 other people. So why don't you call the names off, and Tara, and we'll go from there.
Oh, here comes Randy. So you've been deposed. Randy's the chair now.
There you go.
Let me know when you're in, Randy.
Been running your Camaro yet in the snow, Brian?
Yeah, no. hasn't left my garage.
My Corvette.
Randy, are you in?
My Corvette will be back next week from paint.
Oh, nice. Oh, you got it done?
Yes, I am.
All right, Mr. Blackmer, you are the chair because Mr. Perotti Brown is unavailable this evening.
Well, I'm not at all prepared for this, and I wasn't at the last meeting. So if somebody else can do this, it'd be much better than me trying to do it.
Okay, John B. Lenke, you're reassigned to chair, but let's, okay, so you just want a quick roll call because I can see everybody here.
Okay, just call off the names, everybody, and that'll be the roll call. Because like I said, I only got Brian and Alvin and myself on the thing. I don't have the multiple things. So why don't you do the roll call?
You got it. John B. Lenke.
Present.
Mike Krogel.
Present.
Brian Santos.
Present.
Dave Poplawski.
Present.
Randy Blackmer.
Present.
Alvin Hill.
Yep, present.
Okay, and we have staff Tara Pangesic, Cindy Dunn, and Gloria Harvey. All right, we're going to proceed as we have. I'm going to read through, but instead of reading every single definition, I'm just going to read the ones where people made comments, unless somebody wants to stop and go over something that isn't highlighted. Can you guys all see the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we had, I believe one of these was a comment from Alvin and another comment from me on a budding owner. The owner of a property, and I think I've actually already edited this a bit. I am suggesting that it should read, the owner of property sharing a contiguous border boundary with the property being subdivided and or with parallel frontage on the other side of a town, state, or private road or shared driveway. So I did add a couple of words in there, but does anybody else find this really weird and confusing?
I'm reading it like 5 times. comments
The
on it.
owner of a property sharing a contiguous boundary with the property being subdivided. Boy, that is a tough sentence. The owner of a property sharing a contiguous boundary with the property being subdivided and or with parallel frontage on the other side of a town, state, or private road or shared driveway. I find that a horrible sentence.
Okay.
Anybody have any feelings here on how we can fix this, other than the couple of words that I added in red?
Well, first of all, property, if you're abutting contiguous boundary with property, why does it have to be being subdivided?
Yeah,
Well, I guess that's because this is the subdivision regs, but that is where it starts to get squirrely for sure.
yeah, because I feel like it should be boundary with the property, period. Why do we need to say being subdivided?
That was my point.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, I think you're correct. So let me see if I can quickly rephrase this. The owner of a property sharing a contiguous boundary
With the
with
property.
the subject property, right? Because
I mean,
it's still
that's
got to
fine.
be, yeah, with the subject property.
I think that's fine to add the word subject in there. That's fine.
And or with parallel frontage on the other side of the town, state, or private road or shared driveway. Do you think just that one change of subject property to that weird gobbledygook of property being subdivided?
My one other comment is other side of a town or state road. I guess that I wouldn't think of abutting being on the other side of the road, but I won't quibble about that.
I'm making it. Cindy, do you know if there's a legal reason? Do we consider abutters to be, I mean, is that for purposes of like notification?
Yeah,
Yes, that would be for notification. I'm actually Googling that definition, but I can't find anything. But yes, it is for notification.
So what you're saying, Ms. Dunn, is that anybody that owns property on the other side that's abutting that property, it could be 3 or 4 other neighbors or something, they have to be notified?
Well, it depends on what the distance you put in. Right now, I believe it's 200 feet.
Okay.
Any abutting property owners, but then we can look at state statutes too. where you-
With, within 200 feet of the property line.
Yes. Oops. My books still have the state statutes here.
What would, can you just read, if you get a chance, could you read that state statute to us? That
Yeah.
might be something where we might want to incorporate into this as, you know, of the state statute.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion. I'm not saying it's, you know,
That's not a bad idea, John.
we need to start adding state statutes to our regs on a lot of things. So this way, you know, we're conforming with the state statutes, you know, what the state statutes are for, you know, properties
Yep.
and whatnot.
I think we were pretty thorough in the zoning regulations on the state statutes when we made reference to them.
I think, I'm just reading these words again. I think the word and/or in the middle of that is confusing. Why can't we just say subject property, including delete with parallel frontage on the other side of the road, on the other side of a town, state, or private road or shared driveway?
Actually, I think you're right, Brian. I think the and is kind of stupid because you're not going to have parallel frontage and a shared driveway. It's going to be one or the other.
It's including, or yeah, or you can say that subject property or with a parallel frontage. Yeah, there you go. Just the word "and" was screwing me up there.
It was a very strange sentence. Statutory.
And then you can delete that
Language.
first "or" right after "state" because it's comma, private road or shared driveway, right?
So let it be written.
And I think that makes more sense.
Okay. Seems easier to read right off the bat. The owner of property sharing a contiguous boundary with the subject property or with parallel frontage on the other side of a town, state. Oh no, the "or" does belong there because we're talking about roads and then we're talking about driveways. So
Okay.
on the other side of a town, state, or private road or a shared driveway. So we need an
Okay.
article.
Okay.
Yeah. That is now a correct sentence. Oh,
What-
boy, I'm exhausted
Tara?
already.
Tara,
Yeah.
you took
Yes.
out the word "or" between state and private road?
I put it back in.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
back
you
in,
did?
John. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
All right. I'm good with
Let's
it.
see. Agriculture, this was an Alvin comment to align to the zoning regulations, and I double checked. This is the statutory language, so that is correct. I got to move this participants bar over here. Here we go. Under applicant, any person, firm, corporation, partnership, association, or appointed agent having an interest in a parcel of land who applies to the commission, which should be capital C, for approval of a subdivision of such land. Written consent shall be required from the owner of record of the premises if the applicant is not the owner. I don't think we need to discuss that. That's just for clarification. All right, we can move on from that one.
Yep.
Let's see. By any applicants. Oh, I think this was where we changed in the earlier discussion, developer to applicant, because all developers and all applicants are not necessarily, all developers are not necessarily applicants, but all applications have an applicant. I think that was the reasoning behind that. Okay. Cindy, do you have the book with the current regs?
Yes, I do.
Okay, because I believe that what I did here based on these notes is already aligned them, but I'm going to read it and you tell me if the definition of building matches. Alvin, quite some time ago, had given me a list of ones to check against what we just adopted, and I believe this is one. So building, any structure having a roof and intended for shelter, housing, or enclosure of persons, animals, or materials. The connection of two or more buildings by means of a porch, breezeway, passageway, carport, or other roofed structure shall be deemed to make them one building. Does that match what you see in the zoning regs?
Just found the book.
Oh, you just found the
yeah.
book.
Any structure having let me just see. Any structure having a roof and intended for shelter, housing, or enclosure, persons, animals, materials, the connection of two or more buildings. Yep, it's what it is.
Okay.
No, you
All
got
right.
a here. Yeah. You got ROOM instead of ROF.
Where do you see that, John?
Any structure having a roof, room. And
Oh, I see. You're looking at an older paper copy. I can see
Right.
what you're doing because I can see that I changed that already here. Okay.
All right.
I got you.
just bring it attention. What I got in front of me is what I'm looking at. And these are the ones,
We're
the
good.
paper that you sent me.
Okay. So that's just a slightly older iteration. That's all.
Okay.
Signed written approval by. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so this is what I think we are going to need to talk about, which is cul-de-sac. And let me see. I'm going to read what we have, and then I'm going to read the marginal notes. What is currently on this annotated document: cul-de-sac, a road that shall have only one intersection with another right-of-way. The outlet from the cul-de-sac road is the same as the entrance. A cul-de-sac road shall not have any other intersecting road for the entire length of the road other than its entrance or an outlet. A cul-de-sac road cannot exceed 1,000 feet from the center line of the intersecting street to the center of the turnaround. A cul-de-sac road shall not provide exclusive frontage to more than 12 proposed or existing building lots. And then this is something I definitely added. A cul-de-sac is distinct from any other dead-end street in having a turnaround at the closed end. Within the town of Thompson, cul-de-sacs may only be proposed as private roads or shared driveways. Now, obviously, I added that last based on what we've started to articulate in the POCD, but I can't decide that for you guys. That is my proposal. Go ahead, Alvin.
No, I'm saying I fully agree with that last sentence.
Okay, are we all fairly comfortable with this? I mean, this is 6 people, which does represent a quorum of the commission. But I would say that this is an item that has sparked some controversy. I can think of at least one commissioner who is not currently here, but who has raised objections to the idea of prohibiting cul-de-sacs as town-maintained roads. As you know, I feel the case has been very strongly made that we do not want them as town-maintained roads. But this is one I think you guys should take some time to discuss here.
So that individual is against the last sentence, saying it's a private road or shared driveway?
Well, he's not here, so I
But that's the
can't.
sentence he's taken objection to.
He has taken objection to the concept
Yeah.
in discussion, yes.
So I'll just lead by example, and forgive me. Madison Avenue
Mm-hmm.
is a cul-de-sac, right?
Yeah, obviously under the existing regulatory structure, which permits them.
And as soon as Brian is done with that development, it's no longer a private road, because I think we agreed to plow that road, right?
It's a
We
town
agreed to
road,
accept the road, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's classified as a cul-de-sac though, right?
but it still is a town road. I mean,
Okay, that's
yeah,
what I'm
it's a
missing,
town road,
Cindy.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well,
I'm just-
it's a cul-de-sac because when that application was approved and that road was planned for, that was under the current existing subdivision regulations,
Sure.
which not only doesn't prohibit them, I think there is an implied preference for them,
Yeah.
which is, very suburban, but not fiscally wise.
So not to be the dumb guy here, but so all future, after this gets approved, all future cul-de-sacs would be considered private, and somebody there would need to maintain that.
Correct. That is what we're proposing.
And was the Madison Avenue more than 1,000 feet cul-de-sac? Does anyone know that? Cindy, do you remember?
No, I don't know. Don't.
Because we're not supposed to allow those roads over 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
Did you hear what Mr. Krugel said?
Yeah, we're
No,
not
I-
allowed to have them over 1,000 feet, you said, right, Mike?
All dead end streets are 1,000 feet or less.
Okay.
And that's something I think that we haven't really reviewed, so to speak.
You mean you haven't checked when you get those to see whether
Correct.
they're 1,000 feet?
Oh,
You
I,
definitely checked. You definitely checked on Jason LaValle's because that was a part of why he had to get a variance for his development over there, right? Isn't that a thing that happened?
No, his is that he was doing everything in 3 phases, and he wasn't creating a cul-de-sac because he was making a continuation and creating a horseshoe a road going from one.
Okay.
So there was gonna be no cul-de-sac. The only thing he created was, he created an area for people to turn around and at the end where he will say it at 1,000 feet, because you couldn't drive past it because it was still undeveloped road to, to tie
Okay,
in.
so
with
it was
the
like,
lower.
so it was a temporary cul-de-sac for construction purposes.
Correct.
Okay,
And
So Madison Avenue, let's just say we have a repeat of Madison Avenue and it becomes a town road. Is this preventing us from having that ability to make it a
Yep.
town road?
Yes, it is.
so this is the reasoning, and we wouldn't get into the reasoning as much in the definitions, but it is certainly coming in the sort of the general provisions. Because I know there's been some complaint about this. You are actually welcome as a developer to put a cul-de-sac there. You're just not welcome to put the burden of maintenance on the town. So, and you essentially, I'm going to suggest that there will be sort of a menu of options, right? If you want to avoid things like putting in sidewalks, you're welcome to do that on a cul-de-sac on your own dime, right? So these are the things that we get people saying they don't want to do, right? You want a cul-de-sac, you don't want sidewalks, fine, you're responsible. If you want the town to be responsible, it's got to show connectivity, and not like lame connectivity, connecting things that don't need to be connected, but genuine connectivity between areas of the town that don't currently have access to one another, where, it would create a genuine ease of access, and you have to have sidewalks, right? So when we get these people saying they don't want to do A, B, or C, it's like, well, then your options are D and E.
Mhm.
So that,
I'm
I think, is going to be the solution.
Kira, is there any, I mean, I do a lot of work in towns, and I don't see like an exclusive cul-de-sac limit, a town that doesn't want a road. Is there towns and I work in Massachusetts a lot, so in Connecticut, is this a common theme with other municipalities?
No.
It's not, but that's because the prevailing wisdom, such as it was that, and that's the wisdom or the conventional thinking that is in the existing document, that homeowners perceive cul-de-sacs frequently as desirable because of the perceived safety, but for municipalities, they are a fiscal loser. So that's the balance of interests. The current conventional wisdom in planning is just this, that you don't want them, because what it creates is more suburban sprawl as opposed to more compact, connected neighborhoods. So again, we're not explicitly banning their construction altogether. We're just saying if you construct it, you own it.
Well, would
So
that not
is that
somehow system getting funding? Like Madison Avenue, not get funding if it was on a private road.
Well, the other thing that they can call them, and I think that it's probably the better choice for them, is to think of them less as public roads than as shared drives, because developments with shared drives are all over the country. They're called condo associations. They're called homeowners associations. They are becoming more normative.
You don't want homeowners associations. That's somebody else telling you what to do with your property.
That's right.
Well, I don't want to live in a homeowners association. You may not want to live in a homeowners association, but to say nobody wants to live in them is incorrect. They are normative outside this region of the country. Modern developments are more often, especially when you get out to the south and west, more often based on association than not.
Okay, so I'm getting lost on the word you used, connectivity or whatever. What do you mean by connecting to another road or connect? I mean, we're talking cul-de-sacs here, so.
Right, right.
Becoming
So
part of-
a cul-de-sac, right. So a cul-de-sac does not connect to another road. A cul-de-sac has
Right.
no connectivity.
Right,
So there is no benefit to the community at large. The only benefit conveyed by the road is to the actual people who live on it. However, a road that connects road A to road B as an intermediary point has at least some transportive value to the people who don't live on that road. In other words, it's an actual asset to the community. Now, you can also argue the level at which any road should be proposed. That's a different thing down the line. In this instance, we're just talking about cul-de-sacs. Cul-de-sacs have no connectivity. They are relatively expensive to maintain from a road work point of view if you sort of amortize costs over miles, road miles and all that kind of thing. And the amount of taxes recouped from the properties on them can never offset the maintenance need.
Yeah, but
I'm lost on that.
they don't have the use that a through street would have either. You have the 12 homes that are accessing that street, so you don't have the wear and tear. You don't have the same maintenance costs as a through street.
That's a fair point.
And I know what Madison Ave, like Brian said, I mean, that was inspected, that was, I mean, the life expectancy on that road as compared to, a track like 193 or something is totally different. So, with $350,000, $400,000 homes on it, personally, I think limiting this, it's a bigger discussion. I think a lot more input. I don't know. I mean,
I agree with you, David.
I know that John, I know there's a commissioner because I attended the meeting. The commissioner started to become vocal about it, but that's just my feeling.
Yeah, and that's
I'm
why
kind of torn on it,
I'm
too.
raising it. It is a fair point for discussion, and obviously I have articulated why I think this is the direction, or at least part of why I think this is the direction you should move. Another thing that we haven't talked about, although I sort of started to hint at it earlier, is, suburbanization. So one of the things that people talk about valuing the character of the community as, a rural town of this, and being concerned about the cut up of open space, green space, yada, yada, yada. That actually becomes worse when you allow the sort of squid-like development out into your outlying districts. So the more of these sort of less fiscally sound types of developments that you permit doesn't accomplish the driving of the density to the districts where you want it quite as heavily, with the connectivity, with the walkability. Those are all things to consider. I can tell you that when I have gotten feedback on this issue, the private shared driveways issue, from the engineers who bring subdivisions in front of us, and it's mostly Daniel and David who've replied to this, a little bit Bruce Wittes, but I think it's mostly been Daniel and David. They jump up and down and start cheering on this. Like, yes, this is how you want to allow for those sort of clustered developments on the shared drive, so that you don't get the big cut up properties that go deep into the landscape. But it's all stuff to consider.
On a little bit different concern on cul-de-sacs, if they're going to remain a private property, do we no longer have any control over what I mean, we can, I suppose, I don't know if it's anywhere in there, I don't remember reading it, that it would have to be paved or how it would be paved, or you have to have 3 inches of compacted asphalt or whatever, or does that all just get put out the window?
No, that's a great question, Randy.
It is
And
a
I
good
don't have a
question.
full answer. I believe, but I would have to double check this probably with a question to council at least. But I believe that you probably do have the ability to set standards of construction. I mean, just like you do with a driveway, right? A driveway is a private ingress to a property for which there are standards for installation, right? At least with a driveway apron.
Apron, that's
So
it.
Yeah, just with the apron. I don't know. I think you probably do have latitude to set conditions, but I'm writing that question here on my handwritten
Yeah.
notes.
I love that word control that Randy said. Because I think about what, depending on where the cul-de-sac is, we may want a public sidewalk for people to walk on, kind of like Madison Avenue, right? And have that control or ability to, require that, right? I feel like we're losing control, and I think we definitely would need to think about the standards, like Randy said, of what
Yeah.
materials, what it looks like, at least down the road, right?
Yeah. So I'm writing my note here on my handwritten pages. What is our ability to control the standards of construction for private shared drives and private roads, e.g. cul-de-sacs?
Tira, do you know how many there are in town now in this format besides like the condos?
New
Which
road.
cul-de-sacs, shared drives?
A private road, I guess hold on. Yeah, a private road.
Well,
or-
that's
yeah.
Well, at this
That's
point,
a
they're not
similar
private
question.
roads. We accepted all the cul-de-sacs, right?
Well, there are cul-de-sacs, which are town roads, and there are also private roads, which I think gets back to the unaccepted roads question that came up again last night. And I think that all of these questions probably come back around to the same issue. They all cause us problems, but why do they cause us problems, and which problems can we solve?
Yeah. I got another dumb question. I'm so sorry.
There are no dumb questions.
So
Gonna say that.
I'm a little, I guess the word's confused, because we had talked a couple weeks ago or whatever, a month ago. We made, forgive me, I can't remember the driveway. There was a guy, came in. It was we classified it as a glorified driveway, right? And someone said in that meeting, well, are you meeting? If we're going to classify this as a, it wasn't, now I got the word cul-de-sac in my mind. It wasn't a cul-de-sac. Let's just call it a public road.
Plum
We're
Road.
talking about
Plum Road. Yeah,
you're
Plum
talking
Road.
about
That's it.
Plum
Yeah, you're
Road.
talking about Plum Road.
Yeah, Plum Road. But someone said, oh, you got to meet the certain standards for the subdivision to make that road. So where are those standards? I in here. Are they somewhere in here of what
Yeah.
the road?
Oh yeah,
should
they're
look like?
down
they're-
here somewhere.
Yeah.
They're in
okay.
there, and the first time that you were given that issue on your agenda, I quoted you this
Yeah, I remember that. See, that's why I'm
regulations. Yeah,
remembering it right
yeah.
now. I was like,
Yeah.
somebody outlined that, right? So,
exactly. Yeah, and I can look it up on my memo when I get back to the office.
So that
But the
goes to
thing-
kind of Randy's point earlier, is control. We do tell them in here what that road needs to look like. I think we just need to say it in that particular cul-de-sac section, that our control of the road or sidewalk still applies, right? Despite us switching it to a private road or shared driveway. In my
Yeah,
opinion.
I think Randy brought up the most concise question, which is, what are we able to control if we are saying it is privately owned? So that's the question I'll ask Roberts.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Because I suspect that we can, in fact, set standards for that. But I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
it changes how we have to look at these while still having the problem of the fact that they're financial losers for the town to solve, and how to disincentivize them in some other method.
Yeah,
If I
Right?
may-
If it can't,
If I may,
go ahead, Mike.
how does one go about then making an application to have a road approved by the town? If we're talking cul-de-sacs losers for the town somehow, which I cannot see. Having a through road instead, where traffic is going to wear it down, what are the conditions that, I mean, I know we have to make the builders have to do certain specifications to get a town approved, but I don't see the difference between a throughway or a cul-de-sac to make that application.
Actually, Mike, that is an excellent follow-up question, because in fact, it isn't just cul-de-sacs that are losers. All roads are losers financially. We already have, so this goes back to the POCD, right? And that whole super long section that we had about the road maintenance burden, what we are paying for, and what we should be paying for, and the disparity between the two. So every time you add a road mile, you are adding to that which we must maintain, for which we are not necessarily remitting enough in property or other taxes to offset the burden. So we're just adding a maintenance burden. So the argument that we advanced in the POCD, which I'm trying to find the way to carry over now into this document, because this is the document where road standards get described, is under what circumstances do we even want you to propose a road? And we really don't even want you to propose a road unless you can demonstrate a level of, so not just connectivity. That's a good thing that you brought that up, Mike. Not just a level of connectivity, but a connectivity of genuine need. In other words, if there was no road that could get you from, let's say, North Grosvenor-Dale across 395, right? And you proposed one as a part of your subdivision somehow, right? This is wildly hypothetical, but let's say that no existing connection from the west side of town to east side of town existed, and the subdivision that you propose connects those two districts of town in a way that takes 20 minutes out of somebody's drive around time. That would show sufficient value to the residents of town to justify adding that road. But if you're talking about even say what La Valley did up there, a horseshoe road, yeah, okay, it's connected, but it's connecting two ends of the same street within 500 feet of one another. I would like to see that come back as a private drive maintained by the homeowners association.
I mean, I'll respond to that. I'm not in disagreement with that. The bottom line for me is I want more control and make sure that these roads have longevity and don't just beat up right out of the gate, right? So as long as we have that control, I think I would be in favor of keeping it this way. But I'd like to hear from Roberts first, like you said, Tara.
Yeah, I've got my note right here. So I'm not going to strike this. The stuff that tells you what you can do, which is that it can be less than 1,000 feet. I'm going to leave this suggestion that cul-de-sacs may only be proposed as private roads or shared driveways. And all we need to agree to here is that the shape of this is something that we will consider if we choose to go in this direction. I think that's all we really need to say here.
Speaking for myself, I'm in agreement with that.
Okay.
Any other comments from anybody else on that?
I'm not in agreement.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. How about?
Okay, speak to us,
Mr.
Dave.
I think it's a drastic change without any proof that something this drastic is going to be beneficial. I understand what you're saying, Tara, about the roads. I just think that this I'm not sold on this radical of a change. I mean, this is big time. This is,
I hear you. I hear
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
I
you're
just-
true, Dave. Yeah.
I go to like I said, I work in a lot of towns. I see a lot of cul-de-sacs, and I just don't see this radically. And maybe I'd be more sure of it if there was other municipalities who took this drastic of a change and we had some background on it. I'm not sold yet.
What I'm sure I can provide to you is sort of the planning justification. In other words, the industry philosophy on it. That I'm sure I can find for you. Whether you find it convincing or not,
No,
I can't. But this is new, so you're not going to see that it's been widely adopted yet, because this is a relatively recent evolution in how town planners, urban planners, city planners, however you want to call it, are thinking about the constitution of their communities.
What
So it
discussing
is
the-
leading edge.
yeah.
So it is.
What'd you say, Mike?
In my opinion, what it comes down to is making it a way for the town not to be liable for something and to be able to cut their costs somewhere. That's what it sounds like to me.
That is certainly one of the pieces of it.
Because when you start going to these gated communities and everything else, I mean, I know we still have rules and regulations that we can apply to, excuse me, that we can apply to them. But I know I'm just maybe too old to wrap this around my head right now, but.
Hey man, I lived in a cul-de-sac when I was like 4 to 8 years old, right? Of course, 4 to 8 year olds don't think about it at all. I'm sure it was considered a fantastic suburban neighborhood. I have no doubt about that. And I'm sure that my parents bought that house for the same reason that other people buy houses on cul-de-sacs, because of the perception of safety and, so I'm not saying there are not conflicting interests here.
You don't have.
So
true
what'd you say, John?
You do not have true traffic. In other words, going from one end to the other end, connecting to another street, and over 1,000 feet. So with the cul-de-sac, you're limiting X amount of houses, and the only way people can visit or go up that road is once they hit the cul-de-sac, they got to turn around and go back out the way they came in.
I'll tell you what, though, it doesn't stop the speeders from going up and down the road.
Well,
Because on my road, they're not that slow, and it's a dead end street.
but that's what a cul-de-sac does. It just creates a short distance limit, minimizes how many houses can be built. And that's my perception. Is it a good thing? It all depends on the developer or what the people want. Like you said, it's the cost or the burden of the maintenance of it. If it becomes under the town, and who picks up the cost for that? Everybody else in the town, all the taxpayers.
And one other thought, if I may, you're talking
Yep,
about
go ahead.
the communities more down south or out west. They don't get as much snow and everything else as what we have over here, which means the contractor that is plowing that road, how soon is he going to get in there to clean these streets for the people, for their safety? And I'm not one for safety overall, but that's just a thought. Well, no, you know what I mean.
You don't hear that every day, Mike.
That's in the back of my mind. I'm not worried about the fire department coming down or my house or something like that. But when you start to talk about these communities, that is a thing to think about.
It is. Those are also younger communities by and large too, right? Here in New England, we have an established pattern of development for better or for worse, and some of those things are for better and some of those things are for worse. Communities built in the South and West, particularly the far West, are much, much newer. They're almost always gridded. So there are different physical conditions being applied there, but they're being built on different kinds of planning matrices. So I'll do those two things on this item because I think it is important, and it's not my intention to ramrod anything through on this. I'm going to follow up with Roberts, and I will provide the sort of backing theory on this, and you guys can consider it in whatever way you want. You're either going to find it convincing or you're not, right? Because it's your decision to make. All I can do is propose.
One more thing, Tara.
Yep.
It'll be a suggestion to you or Cynthia on this. Let's like see what Putnam, Killingly, Plainfield, because they're much larger than us, and they gotta have quite a few cul-de-sac areas, and see what the planning and development of zoning, their zoning regulations have for that type of a situation. And that could give us a good basis to work with too.
Okay.
I'm just throwing that in because, this is new to us, more or less. Let's
Yep.
put it, so at least with Killingly, Plainfield, or Putnam or everything, they've been having they had cul-de-sacs that have been around a little bit longer than what we've got, so to speak. So if we can take some information from them and decipher it and see if it'll fit our needs or not. That's my suggestion.
No, also a fair point. So I've got that in my notes here too.
Here, is it possible? But one more thing, is it possible to have our cake and eat it too? Have it so it can be public or proposed, private?
What was that? What was that again, Dave? I kind of missed it a little bit.
That's all right. Can it be worded as it can be public, proposed private, or a shared driveway?
Maybe. I think I know where you're headed at. And I think it gets back to something I said earlier, which is creating levels of incentive. For example, every time somebody comes and says they don't want to put a sidewalk in, but they want the town to maintain the road, I think that should be a big, right?
Yeah.
Because what are you doing? The developer's actually giving nothing to the town, but then is asking the town to take quite a burden and not have the pedestrian safety aspect. So maybe there's the compromise. So we'll consider that for when we get to that section. Because here we are talking about provisions, and all we're talking about is definitions. But obviously, that's inevitable, right?
I keep going back to Blackmere Downs. I know I keep seeing Randy's name up there, but Blackmere Downs, and I look at that road and how old that is, and there's like zero maintenance on it. So
Mm.
That was also built to the standard, the specs that subdivision regs required. And if we allow cul-de-sacs to be built by the developer as a private road, that was my question. Do we have the right to command what the specs are to be on the road?
yeah, I was just kind of supporting your question when.
Yeah. It's an excellent question. The reason I believe it's probably possible is because we tell people what to do on their private property all the time. We have building standards that are applied, even though you're going to go in and live in it as a private homeowner, right? And those come from a state or national level as well, but it's still the governance of a privately owned thing on property. So I think it's probably possible, but I will find out. That's a promise. All right, so we will skip dead-end street because the definition of dead-end street is going to be tied to cul-de-sac. Either it is allowed or it is not as a publicly accessible road. So we'll just skip that one. Cindy, you got those, the zoning regs definitions open again? I think that I've changed all these, but I just want you to confirm for me as we go. This is one that Alvin called attention to: driveway and access onto or an egress from an approved town street. Is that
Wait a
correct?
minute. Drive. Sorry. Or an egress through town street.
Okay, all right, so we're already good there. I don't know what happened.
Wanna go back up, you, see, you skip that.
What did I
request
skip?
Data receipt.
Oh, yeah,
So is this how you were gonna change it to?
well, before it just said when the application is received by the Planning and Zoning Commission at its regularly scheduled meeting. The change I made was the day upon which is more specific.
No, it has to be the day of the, because of legal time statutes to hear the application.
So say what it should be then?
It has to be, date of the receipt is when the Planning and Zoning Commission receives the application, comes into the office. You always put that on the application, but for this, to comply with the state.
So it's the day upon which the application is received.
That starts the day the Planning and Zoning Commission receives it.
So just take out at its regularly scheduled meeting.
Yeah.
It seems awfully, okay.
No, you keep that in. I thought you said the day
Hold on.
upon the application is read by the Planning and Zoning. Yeah, that's, leave that out. That's right, yeah. Leave at its regularly scheduled meeting out.
Leave that out. Okay. I am deleting it. It does seem hideously vague, but I believe you.
The day of which application Planning and Zoning Commission, yeah.
So
Okay.
you're leaving out the last 4 words.
I can
Yes,
double-
that's what she's,
I
that's
was
what she's suggesting.
It's when you were talking about that, I'll do it and look.
What's Cynthia saying is regular scheduled meeting, those at its regular scheduled meeting, is those are the words that you're eliminating?
That's what she's saying, or that's what she
Okay.
seemed to be saying, yes.
See. All right, for now,
Okay.
just leave it like that. If it changes, I'll let you know when I research it, when I find it again.
Okay,
She's mumbling again.
I know. We all do it.
Sorry.
Okay, Cindy, turn to the page in the current regulations that say frontage and confirm that this is now aligned. The boundary of a lot abutting a
Frontage.
public,
The
yeah,
boundary of lot abutting a public street.
okay, so I have added as a suggestion here. Yes, this was a suggestion of David Held's to bring it into the idea, to align it to the fact that we are allowing shared driveways, to add or an approved access easement.
You're going in and out, Tara. Or maybe it's my computer, sorry.
Well, yeah,
Approved
think we'll
access
have it.
easement. So that is in line with what David? What did you?
So David Held is one of the engineers that I sent for comment, and he
Right,
sent quite a few comments back, and he made the observation that since we have articulated that we will permit shared driveways, that some of these definitions need to be expanded to include those so that they don't contradict, right? So whereas it currently would be the boundary of a lot abutting a public street, he's suggesting we should also add to make it absolutely clear, or an approved access easement, which a shared driveway would be.
You-
Thought, commissioners?
Is that-
You're gonna have
that's what a
150
cul-de-sac
feet
would
on
be
an
called
easement?
too?
I'm sorry, I interrupted. What'd you say, Brian?
No.
That's Dave.
Dave?
So is
what'd
that
you
what
say?
a cul-de-sac would be called, an approved access easement as well?
Well, if it's a shared drive or a private road, I mean, those are all various forms of access.
But you
So an
have to be-
access, a shared driveway would be an access easement because it's easement across multiple properties, right?
But
Yeah, I'm just
You-
not sure how technically how if there are easements for,
is your
cul-de-sac
easement gonna
and
be
the-
150 feet? Because your frontage still has to be 150 feet.
yeah, I just wasn't sure of the term, if the term encompassed everything.
I am highlighting that.
Yeah, so how is that going to work out? If you have shared driveways, but you need 150 feet frontage, 150 feet frontage to what?
You would have a back lot.
What?
How about
So
having a
it's the frontage on the shared drive. So you,
Then
You'd
you're
have
not gonna have any houses built. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry. I mean, how many easements have 150 feet frontage? All right, whatever.
This is challenging the word access easement. Shouldn't it be or an approved right of way easement?
maybe, or just right of way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was all encompassing or not. It didn't sound like it got everything.
And I'll tell you
Yeah,
why. I'll tell you why I'm saying right away, because I'm on Woodstocks. I have their subdivision recs open, and it looks like this is what it says for them, and this is on cul-de-sac. I'll skip to the main point here. It says, which is dedicated to the town in case of a permanent cul-de-sac, shall follow the ownership of the abutting lots, but the town shall be given a right of way easement for such areas. So it sounds like they're doing the private thing too, but they're saying they're giving themselves the right of way through that cul-de-sac.
That's interesting, Brian. Can you copy and send that to me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
So I think or a right of way is more appropriate here. And they specifically said right of way easement. They used the word easement at the end too.
Interesting.
That
So-
would be something you need to follow through for Putnam and all them other towns.
Right, but I'm still not getting it on your frontage. So you're saying you can have, if you have a right of way and you want to use that as your frontage, you have to have 150 feet. Is that what you're saying? In say RRAD district?
Well, I think, and this is going to be a more robust discussion again. I think that where you're going to see this come into play is with trying to incentivize conservation subdivisions wherein you specifically permit smaller dimensions to try to get people to cluster their development. So I think that is where this is going to come into play. But let me make a note of that question, Cindy, because it's possible that I'm not fully answering you. On record, probable. How is frontage affected? Requirement.
Huh?
Papers everywhere.
I got papers everywhere.
You should
Brian,
see
how
my
many
desk.
screens you got like 3 or 4 screens over there, because
Yeah, I have 3. Yeah, yeah.
That's what happens when you run a big company. You need to be talking to 10 people at once, right?
It's just lovely, John. Yeah, it's just lovely. Yeah.
I think you got to invite John over and share a screen with him so he's got a bigger screen.
I like my
Okay,
small
so aside from the fact that we have a question about how the frontage itself works dimensionally, does the definition generally fit our concepts? The boundary of a lot abutting a public street or an approved right-of-way, setting aside the dimensional issue.
I like that better than the way it was worded before. I think it fits.
Okay, because we'll get to the dimensional issue when we get into the provisions. All right, what was this note? I don't even know what that note was. Okay, next one to double check, Cindy, impervious surface. It looks like I've already changed it, but please confirm. An area of a lot that has been altered in such a way as to be impenetrable by surface water. Such
Right.
surfaces include, but are not limited to, roofs, paved areas, roads, driveways, parking lots, sidewalks, patios, and swimming pools.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Bueno. Gonna add a hyphen there. Oops, it's not a hyphen.
I believe I can find that again.
That's a hyphen. Let's see. So this is a comment from David Held on lot buildable. A buildable lot shall meet the minimum size, frontage, and net buildable area for the zoning district in which it is located and meet all applicable health and safety requirements. David has made the comment that he thinks the buildable area concept was dropped in the new zoning regs. I don't think it was.
I'm
I'm gonna-
not sure. I think he's right.
Okay.
Because let's go to it. Let's lot area. Okay. All right. So you have it in the business. Well, let's start back in front of it. Okay. I don't believe it's in RRAG. That's where it's not. If someone, oh yes, no, dimensions, the area for only the northeast. Okay, yeah. Dimensional requirements, the minimum lot area for development in this district shall satisfy Northeast District Department of Health standards, septic and portable water, and be not less than 40,000 square feet. Okay, you do have it in that district.
Yeah, we have minimum sizes in all of the districts with the exception of some specific stuff that was included in the Lake District for existing non-conforming teeny tiny lots.
I guess what I'm saying is it's not as obvious as it was in the dimensional chart in the old regulations. You have to look for it. Dimensional requirements are in CRD. Yeah. ECBD.
So it does look like I've got a follow-up
Yeah.
note here that this particular
it's-
definition does not exist, although net buildable area does. So I don't know what you want to do with that.
Okay, so the areas I'm looking through, it's not, yeah, you do have it, but it's not easy to find. Maybe that's why he's saying that. It's not as easy as it was in the other regulations, so.
No, I just think the word is different. Like you just said, it says net buildable area. It's just
Well,
not the same. It's just not the same words.
It doesn't say net build. Yeah, I think maybe that's what he means.
Maybe.
is
So I'm gonna do
net
this.
buildable area. Yes, that's where the difference is the net buildable
Yeah,
area.
it's not
Yes.
lot buildable.
Yes.
And I'm going to
That's it.
highlight this. And if it doesn't appear as we scroll through, because I don't want to take us out of order, then I will move this down there and that will align it to the current definitions. Okay. I think
Well,
that's
do you want,
solved.
do you want to address net buildable area in the regulations, in the zoning regulations? Or are you happy with what you did? In other words,
Well,
somebody can put a,
That's what the commission agreed to was in their document, was that net buildable area is a part of those definitions. So if we're aligning these definitions to those, then that would be appropriate.
but you don't have the word net buildable area in your districts. You just have not less than 40,000 square feet. Probably, I don't know. I'd have to compare
So
it with the other regulations.
So the concept of the net buildable area exists. It's just not specifically referenced. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay. So according to logic that we applied in the zoning regulations, we purged from the definitions terms that were not used in the document. So if net buildable area does not exist in this document, and I don't know at this point if it does, then I would say you could purge this term because it doesn't refer, the glossary doesn't refer back to the text. But that's an open question because I don't know yet. We haven't been into the
Well,
provisions yet.
I actually don't know if there's any differences because the dimensional requirements in the districts from the old regulations in that chart, it had net buildable area effective, blah, blah, 40,000, 40,000, 20, 40, 40. So there was nothing in commercial or industrial. So I don't even know if it's necessary. You have to
Okay, well,
have 40,000 square feet to build something on that property. Whatever.
okay. Now I think I know which question needs to be answered. Okay.
Okay.
All right, what do I have here for, oh, this is the same thing, lot frontage, that portion of a lot extending along a street line or an approved, we liked right-of-way, right? That's what we liked before?
This is in the building regs, the zoning regs too. Do you want to just copy and paste what that says? It says lot frontage,
yeah.
the length measured between side lots located entirely within the lot of passing through any points of front lot, such frontage may be non-continuous, i.e. is not required to be straight line between points, but may be irregular. Want to just copy that?
Yeah, in fact, I'm doing this.
Yeah, because that's what we talked about that when you did zoning regs, and that's what you had agreed upon. You didn't want it contiguous.
Yep.
So,
Okay, there we go. Copy paste from zoning regulations. I got that. Okay, this is another one that I actually think is going to involve real conversation.
I mean, you don't even have a definition of lot interior in the regular regulations, in the zoning
Yeah.
regulations.
Yeah, we don't.
I believe we do under interior lot.
Oh, okay, well, if you, oh, yes, you're right. So it should actually, it
Yeah, it
should
says
be, that should be transferred over to lot interior. So,
Yeah, yeah, it says also flag lot.
yeah. Okay, I'll have to make a note of that.
It's
in a
copy
piece of
and
paper
paste.
here.
That's a copy and paste again. Maybe.
Yes, it is a copy paste, except I think, and I think that this might even be on the memo that we've skipped over the last couple of weeks or the last couple of months at PZC. I think we were never fully confident on what we wanted to say about interior lots. And I think that is on the list of things that actually needed further looking at, and I don't have Cindy, the memo Cindy put together in front of me. But again, this comes up as being relevant when applied to the concept of conservation subdivisions, shared drives. So this is the language that I've suggested, and what I would actually suggest is carrying this language into the zoning regulations and not the other way around.
Mhm.
But again, that is for your discussion. So this is what I am proposing, and I think this makes it more consistent with what we've tried to communicate. A lot that lies behind a separately existing lot, therefore not having the minimum road frontage generally required by these regulations, but otherwise conforming to all specific area and dimensional requirements for the district in which it is located. An interior lot may share a driveway with the lot behind which it is located, or it may have a separate driveway. And then elsewhere, I think in the memo that Cindy, that we've tabled and suggested a special meeting for, I have further suggested in adding to the zoning regulations that for the purposes of our regulations, lots along a shared driveway are not considered interior lots. Because the way the language is configured now, you could only have one other house on a shared drive because technically they're all interior. It took me a while to wrap my head around that, by the way. So I forgive you if it sounds confusing.
Well, I will say that this reads much clearer than our zoning regulations description. That's for sure.
Okay, so obviously we can't decide in this discussion what we're going to do with that one, but I'm reasonably sure, and Cindy and I can confirm tomorrow, that this is an item that is on that memo for a special meeting to discuss the things that need to be amended in what we just amended, right? Which, it's a 200-page document. If we have 4 pages of things that need to be corrected, I think we're still doing okay. But this was definitely one of them. Dave, you look like you're considering. What are your thoughts here?
I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, the only thing that throws me for a loop is the separate driveways. Like, how is that even possible? But I guess anything's possible.
Exactly.
Shared or separate?
Yeah.
Which one?
We have
Sure.
a few places in town where there are shared driveway.
Well, I'm
with two
saying the shared one makes sense to me, but it says, or it may be a separate driveway. I'm just trying to wrap my head around visually. How is that even possible to have those next to one another? But anyway, I guess it's a possibility.
Right now, what's allowed, of course, if I had drawn it, that would have been better. Right now, what's allowed is, let's say you have a lot that is square, which has the right frontage, and there's a skinny piece of road frontage next to you that has a driveway that leads into an interior lot stacked behind yours.
Sure.
One of those is now permitted with its own driveway.
Yeah.
But
I guess
only
it's
one.
possible. I guess it's possible. Like I said,
Yeah.
like I said, this reads, if those have their zoning regs up, this reads much more clear than our zoning regs that we did. The zoning regs it's one of those, what did I just read?
Yeah,
Moments?
And it was one of the things that I don't think anybody felt super confident about, no matter how many times we talked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I
It is
remember-
on. It is on that memo. It's on page 7, interior lots. We are addressing it.
Okay, good. All right.
I agree with Brian, Tara, that I like the way it's written. It's a lot clearer than in the regs for sure.
Randy, Alvin, what do you guys got? Any thoughts here?
I haven't been able to wrap my head around which end is up on it.
When we go into the special meeting to revise the regs, I'll draw a picture I think this is a case where a picture is helpful.
Worth 1,000 words.
Well, at least worth a dozen, right?
Whatever, yeah.
So Tyrion, this
Alvin-
separate driveway has the, or may have a separate driveway. So this is just the definition, and then it just follows the driveway regs for that separate driveway.
Right. I think I know what you're saying, and I think I agree with it.
I'm talking out loud myself as I'm reading it again, so yeah.
I promise to bring pictures to the next one. How's that?
See, I think that if you've got back to where David was going, if you've got a driveway to the house which is on the road, and it's a shared driveway to a house lot in back of it, you could have either that driveway being shared, or you don't cut down on the number of driveways onto the road unless that is a shared driveway. You can't have a private drive going back to the interior lot, and you're not going to reduce the number of cuts onto the street, because then to the other side of the driveway could be another house lot so you'd have 3 driveways, and if it's 150 feet per house lot, you have 3 driveways in 350 feet.
Right. So the shared, so there's 2 different concepts here. The shared drives do reduce curb cuts. That was one goal of having them. The way interior lots is currently described and defined in the zoning regulations, never mind this. All it says is that you can only have one flag lot. It actually, one interior lot. It doesn't actually say anything about shared driveways because it wasn't, and I'll take full responsibility. I hadn't wrapped my head fully around the nature of those lots, right? At this point, I have wrapped my head, and it took me months, right, to figure out what the relationship was between flag lots, curb cuts, shared drives. So there's 2 problems that need to be solved. One is the definition needs to be better in both documents, and I think this is the better one, and it sounds like generally we all agree. The second problem to be solved is in the provisions of the actual regulations, not the subdivision regulations. We need to communicate interior lots in such a way that you can have more than one property sharing a driveway, or else the point of having shared driveways kind of goes away.
So not to invoke my approval of the cul-de-sac thing, but would a cul-de-sac private cul-de-sac, would those lots be interior? In the way it's laid out previous, would those be interior?
The way it's laid, correct. The reason it needs to be, one of the reasons it needs to be corrected is that if somebody proposed a cul-de-sac as a shared drive, unless we go back and correct the zoning regulations, you could only have 2 lots, right? That's a mistake, right? That was a mistake because of not fully understanding how the pieces ultimately worked together. So in order to make shared driveways work, we have to articulate that lots along a shared drive are not considered interior lots for the purposes of regulating their placement along that drive. In other words, it's clustering everything to the front of a development and leaving the land in back, and fewer curb cuts onto the road. Which, it only took me 7 months to understand what I myself said.
Maybe with a little luck in another 7 months, you'll have me straightened out.
Yeah.
But-
You'll get to it faster than I will, Randy. I guarantee it.
And on the curb cuts, I mean, excuse me, on the cul-de-sac, you're still requiring 150-foot frontage. Right?
Well, that's, we're in
On-
provisions. Yeah, that's in provisions, and that is actually something that needs to be discussed within that, right? Because again, where I think you're going to see this become applicable is with conservation subdivisions. Because when I talked to Carolyn about those, you've had them on your books for years, and apparently there's never been a single proposal for one. And there's quite a few reasons for that, I think. One of which is that there's no actual particular incentive to create one. If you actually read, and this is going to be a later topic, right? But if you actually read the way it's laid out, there's no higher level of open space set aside. So what's the difference between doing that and doing a conventional subdivision? And the extent to which you are permitted to shrink the lots to cluster is negligible. So you only really incentivize that if you give a developer the ability to build more properties than he otherwise would, right? And how do you do that? You allow him to build on smaller lots. So that's where that's going to become applicable. But again, we're getting out of the definitions there and just setting ourselves up for a later conversation, which is fine. Oh, look at that. It's net buildable area. I'm going to go back and delete this one. How do you like that? There's your net.
What did you delete it for? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Because we just found it.
Okay.
Further down the same page. And this, I am quite confident, is carried over because Alvin called my attention to it, and I can see my corrections in red. You want to just take a quick scan of it, Cindy, compare what's on the screen to what you've got in the book?
Well, for net buildable area?
Yeah. I believe you will find these are consistent.
No, you don't have any net buildable. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Area slopes in excess. Okay, areas defined. Wetlands, 3 ledge outcrops, areas, special flood, and areas encumbered by easements. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so here's one where Alvin asked me to check the alignment and includes a comment from Carolyn. And this same comment that you see here from Carolyn is essentially, she included variations of this throughout the section on conservation subdivisions later. She believes, and I am always inclined to agree with her, that it would be wise to designate the specific area of open space where it is supposed to be on a plan, and also note the purpose. I know why she came up with that, because we had somebody come in and make an inquiry about purchasing some land. And as I think both Cindy and I talked to him independently, when we looked at the 2 adjacent parcels, it was obvious that one of them had been the open space set aside from a subdivision. Less obvious on the other, but you could just see it was on a cul-de-sac. There was your keyhole, and there was one undeveloped lot on the keyhole. And this was one of the 2 properties the kid was going to buy. He may still be buying it, I don't know. But when you went into the property card, you couldn't see anywhere that it was designated open space. Right, so there was no placeholder there other than somewhere in a record, in a P&Z meeting, there's got to be that record of it. So this is Carolyn's suggestion, which I think is quite wise. Anybody else have any feelings there?
No, I agree. I'm thinking of Donovan Drive, and I thought it was called out on that, so I was a little shocked that maybe it was earlier. Or I think LaValley's has it designated.
LaValley's might. and that might be because Janet was involved with it and she
Oh,
takes that stuff very seriously. I don't know how old this one was. It was,
Oh, that was really old.
yeah, it was super, super old, but you can just tell from looking at it, you know, on the parcel maps that has to have been what it was.
yeah, I agree. It should be in there. I mean, it should be, if it's not plainly indicated and only Janet's following it, it should be in there for sure.
Well, she may or may not be the only one, but it definitely was not followed in this one because this put me in quite a journey through the records. All right, we agree on that. We like that. Look at that. We're more than halfway through the alphabet. And we've got 35 minutes to go. All right, Cindy, we're going to... What's that, John?
Step it up.
I'm doing my best. I always do my best for you guys.
Michael's falling asleep over here. I gotta keep hitting him.
I am not just.
Cindy, double check this one. I can't tell what I did here, although I think I probably
one?
changed it.
Yeah,
past the
you got it
solar.
right. Yep,
Okay. I wonder why I said that.
Yep. that's right.
Okay. Suggest striking person for the same reason we struck it from the zoning regulations. In this case, person appears to be any noun, which renders the term completely useless. I don't know.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah. I mean, if Cindy's dog brings suit, I'm pretty sure that Cindy's dog qualifies as a person under that definition. Any other entity? Let's just say corporation, any other entity.
Yeah, sounds good.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Okay, so pervious surface. We have two things here. This definition apparently does match what we have in the zoning regs. David Held's comment, this definition is very vague. Is a definition for this needed for any reason or should it be removed? I put it to the commission.
Does not create point source of runoff.
Well, by definition, impervious surface we have. So obviously.
We definitely have that.
Yeah, so keep that.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
It's really not needed.
Yeah, because it's just the balance of what's left over, right, from impervious. So, I mean,
yeah. So keep or strike. What do you guys think?
I don't think it
Strike.
hurts us. Either
I would
way.
say keep
Strike,
it.
Alvin?
No, I say keep it. I mean, why not?
Oh, you guys might have to
I don't think
vote.
it's doing us any harm either way. So
Yeah, well,
My question is 30% of stormwater, of all stormwater into the ground. If you have a nice gentle rain, you get 100%. You have a torrential downpour, a thunderstorm, you might end up with 10%. I haven't quite figured out how you'd apply those percentages.
Yeah, it's kind of on the same lines. I'm hung up on, let's say, solar panels. Say you've got clusters of solar panels. Do we have to get into the percentage of pervious surface? I mean, could it be questioned or called out?
I think we specifically addressed solar panels in the section on the regs. I think we did not count them as impervious surface. Cindy, can you flip to that and say,
the solar panels?
yeah,
Well, they're
I
not
could be
in our,
wrong about that, Dave.
What's that, Tara?
Okay.
I
so-
could be wrong in my memory on that, but I seem to think that we discussed what to do with whether their pervious surface, counted as a percentage.
Yeah, I was
Dimensional.
just using that as an example of,
Wow, it's pretty, accessory, roof mounted, no.
Well, solar panels are either on a roof or
on the
they're
ground.
ground mounted.
Right. But they're not lying on the ground, so I would think they would not, I
Exactly.
mean,
Not part of
they're
the
on,
calculation.
they're on apparatus.
Right.
So,
And they're spaced
not
out enough
attached
that the
to-
water can run under them, around them.
Oh, yes, okay, yes, it says here, the apparatus for residential ground mounted solar PV systems shall not be included in calculations for lot coverage of impervious cover surfaces upon which such an apparatus may be installed and that are paved or otherwise rendered impervious shall be included in calculations for lot coverage or impervious coverage. Do y'all get that?
shockingly, yes, I did.
Piero was right.
Yeah, so if it's mounted on dirt, we're not counting it as impervious surface. But if it's bolted down to cement, the cement pad is
That are
counted as
paved.
impervious
Right.
surface. Yeah,
Okay.
Right. Okay. Okay.
which still puts us back to, do we need this or not? But it sounds like we don't need it, but nobody's offended by it.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. Fair? Yeah?
Yeah, I guess
No?
so.
Fair to me.
Okay.
At least till someone challenges it.
And that can happen.
Well, that's why we want to understand what we've said and why we want to be clear. So, I mean, part of David's comment here is that it is vague and unclear. I don't know that it is unclear, although, you know, Randy does point out that different storm events have different levels of runoff.
Yeah, but there's some math equation that goes along with calculating that pervious pavement thing. So
I think I got this from Marla, which leads me to be inclined to leave it.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure I got that from Marla.
She would know.
She would know. Cindy, I'll tell you a funny story later.
Okay.
I don't want to tell it on recording, or maybe I'll shut the recording later and then I'll tell you guys a funny story. Primary street or arterial highway, a public right-of-way with an average daily traffic count of, used primarily for heavy volumes of traffic or high vehicle speeds. I don't know why I marked this other than perhaps to figure out what the ATD count is. I'm going to highlight that.
I have no idea.
I'm going to highlight that for later attention. Okay, here we go. Oh, we're back to some of our favorite issues. I love this. I love talking about these things over and over again. Private street, an access way to one or more privately owned properties which has not been dedicated and accepted by the town. Such access ways are not maintained by the town. Cindy, is that just aligned to what we have in the
Yes,
zoning
it
regs?
is. Yes, it is.
Okay. I'm actually pretty happy with that. Anybody else have any thoughts here?
I do.
Which eye was that? Was that Mike?
Mike Kogel, yep. If we are talking snowstorms and everything else, I was talking about the lots around the lakes. The town does knows because of safety issue. Would that apply to these roads also? Which would then be the town does not maintain them. Maintain, I guess, is the word that I'm looking at.
You're talking about anything that comes in the future, right, Mike?
I'm talking about anything that even now, well,
Even now, okay.
and even now, because they do go through the, I'll call them the lots down on the lake. They plow that.
Well, they plow a certain amount on the list that I'm gonna be sending to Brian has asterisks on the lots that they plow.
Yeah, like my mother-in-law lives on Fernwood Ave in Little Pond, and they plow that street. The town plows that street.
Right, and those.
Yeah, that's a
and
dirt
those are
road.
not town
That's a
accepted.
dirt road, yeah.
Yeah,
I know that. I know where your mother-in-law lives. Yeah. And in the road, off the roads that she lives on is like a dead end because she's the last house on the right.
That is correct, yeah. It's a
So
dead-end street.
that's dirt road too. So coming off of Sand Dam Road, coming down that way is dirt road.
I don't know who makes that determination. Does like Rich just say, yeah, we're gonna just plow that road? I don't
Well,
know.
they
think-
were,
I have.
they were
spoken-
made in 1992. Let me go get the list.
I believe those are the roads that are get plowed last.
They may be, but they're still plowed. And
Yes,
it-
they're
Yeah, I
plowed.
agree with Mike. They're still plowed.
It has to do with the emergency apparatus being able
I-
to get in.
Yeah, but they're still one of the last roads. So when they got whoever's plowing that area plows the roads that need to be plowed first, like Sand Dam Road and except then they go and do
Okay,
that
but
road.
They're still plowed.
They're still plowed, but they are the last of the last.
Somebody has to be last.
Yeah, well,
Well-
the thing with this one is I don't necessarily disagree with the write-up, but somewhere along the line, like on Fernwood Ave, someone made the decision that, yeah, the town's gonna just plow that road, right?
It doesn't say on here that they're doing it though.
Yeah, no,
I-
but they are, you know, so.
It's- Yeah, it
Well-
says the double asterisks on this list, the highway department and or town hired contractor will plow these roads after all the main roads have been plowed.
Right.
And has double asterisks, but Fernwood does not have a double asterisk on it.
Yeah,
Or maybe whoever's not paying attention just does it anyway. Because there's what, 3 houses there now? Well, there always has
I think
been,
there's, yeah, it's limited, 4 or 5, I think, 4 houses.
something like that. But she
With that
is the
right.
last house on the right. That I do
Yeah.
remember.
It's already there.
Yeah, but
So
they don't
this
burn-
is-
They don't
this
plow
is actually the
Burnside right
point-
on the side of it.
What was that again,
They don't,
Dave?
Burnside, which is on the backside of Fernwood off the hillside, they don't plow Burnside Road. Burnside,
Burnside? Nope, they don't, no.
See, I don't know why, other than what you just says right here, they don't maintain the road, but for whatever reason, they do Fernwood. I
Yeah.
have no idea.
Yeah, so this was actually a point when we were discussing in the going back to the POCD now, the first time that I fully proposed in a document this whole like let's differentiate what private and public streets are, et cetera, et cetera. I believe under the current regulatory letter of the law, structure, zoning regs, subdivision regs, whatever, wherever private streets are mentioned, it is either explicitly said or implied that the town does not maintain it. But Dennis's point was, well, that is the way it's supposed to be, but that the town ends up going and doing it anyway. My response to that was, whose fault is that? That we are saying one thing and doing another. If we take this seriously, right, that we are allowing people to build at their own risk in certain areas, but leaving that risk to them, then do what you say and say what you mean. There is compelling reason to do that. Now, if in practice we've come to plow some of these private roads because somebody knows a little old lady lives on one, or because
Yeah, I
it's
think that's
just
what's
habit and
happening.
they've-
I think somebody's
I-
either
I think
pitching
you're
about
right.
it or someone knows somebody who says, hey, I'm a little old lady, come plow me out, and it's just happening.
I think that you're right.
Well, you have
And
to go back to
think-
1990. You have to go back to 1992 to figure out why they decided to plow these roads, because that's how old this list is.
I don't
But
know.
maybe Rick knows that. Maybe Rick, we can ask Rich. So, from the highway
1992. I'm
department.
trying to remember who's the first, second, and third. It actually goes back to, if you think about it, it goes back to the Board of Selectmen. They're the ones that kind of like dictate, or tell the person that's in charge of the maintenance department or the town highway department, what roads to do and what not to do, or what roads are town roads or private roads or whatever. Why I'm looking at it is I get the point where our jurisdiction is this or that, but we have to come to a conclusion that, okay, enough is enough here, with the private roads or the 2 driveway system or a cul-de-sac. We have to really dig in on this and,
Yeah.
And stick
and stick to it, because, we can this can run away on us and it's all gonna fall, looks like it's gonna be pointing to us, but, I do, in my younger days, do remember the board of, the first selectman, that was kind of his decision of, what's, unless it was an emergency where they had to get some emergency vehicle down, then the town had to go in and plow it right away, for whatever reason. But that I think we have to get a better clarification from the big 3.
Well, the thing is, I think that, in this string of documents now, the regs, the POCD, and whatever ends up getting decided here, you guys are actually doing your job. You are taking a line of logic and you are applying it and setting the conditions. And actually, if we want to go back to talking about that Plum Road thing, that's actually in some ways a perfect case. We're forcing that guy to pave over something that he's perfectly willing to live on at his own risk and maintain at his own risk. And it's based on the idea that at some point earlier, we made some other person do this and accepted the maintenance burden for it, when this guy doesn't want us to do that. And there's no real benefit to us, material benefit to us doing it, other than avoiding making another neighbor upset. So there's a lot of, like, I was saying to Cindy the other day, that Aesop's fable of the guy with the donkey and his father, and they're walking down the road and somebody says, why are you making your father walk? You should be riding the donkey. And then the next person says, why are you making the donkey carry your father? Look how tired he is. And in the end, nobody goes anywhere, right? Because you're always responding to the last person who said something to you, right? So when you create a thread of logic that you can support, right? It can't be a thread of logic that can't be supported. And you say, because we see this action, we see this consequence of the action, we see this benefit, we see this detriment, we have weighed these and find this to be the best way to approach it, you are in a good position to say, you may build this as a private road, we will not maintain it, or we will permit this road because it makes sense financially and transportationally to the town. The problem with what has gone before, and you can't do anything about what went before, is that you can't find the thread of logic, right? So what you get is this reactive policy that's been sort of cobbled together over time like pieces on a hermit crab shell, right? Top on top on top, so that there's no through line. And somebody can say, well, they did this for me. Well, you should do it for me too. That's bad policy making.
Yeah, it still goes back to the big 3.
Well, implementation to a certain extent does go back to the select board. You are correct, John. But that's no reason for you guys or for any other iteration of the PZC to not establish and follow a thread of logic and say, we have articulated what the regulations are, and you as a body can apply your logic to issues that come before you. You do lose some control for issues that go to the select board, and select boards do change, and the willingness to follow the path of logic through changes. But that doesn't prevent you guys from doing the best job you can to describe the best possible set of circumstances.
Now, I know that you, I think this was a copy paste from our zoning regs, right?
Which one? Private street?
Yeah, I didn't look it up on my other screen here. Is that where?
Yeah,
that-
these ones in red look like these were the ones where Alvin called my attention to them to make sure they were the same, and I went back and
I just want to
copied
add,
it over.
I just want to suggest adding one thing to the end of this as a new sentence. The town shall have right of way. I just want to always make it clear that any private street, cul-de-sac, new road, shared road, whatever, we have right of way.
Okay.
That makes
I'm
sense.
gonna, yeah, I like it. I think it's probably supportable. So I'm gonna highlight that as a just make sure it's kosher with Rich. I'll have a little list for him.
And so
Okay.
do you need to add that into the zoning regs definition?
I think we
too?
probably should if Rich is okay with it.
Yeah, if that's, yeah, don't add it to your memo yet,
No,
Cindy. Let me
okay.
find out if it's, I mean, you know, no sense in adding it. If he comes back and says, no, you can't do it, then we won't bother. I suspect that that's fine, but I'll let him tell me that.
All right, so what's the point of that, Brian? The town I was reading something, so
I
might
just
have
don't
missed-
want to say, oh, it's a private driveway, the town's not allowed to access it. Well, no, that's not true. If a private way, no, the town has the right of way, right? We need to access that private driveway, so be it. Just like and Fernwood Ave, like the town has the right to go down that driveway, that road,
Yep.
Fernwood Ave.
For emergency purposes,
Yeah, sure,
primarily, we're
absolutely.
talking, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's emergency purposes. You're right.
Okay.
I mean, even if we wanted to, even if in the future, to Mike's earlier point, even if we wanted to say, okay, yeah, we're making Fernwood part of our plow area. That's right of way for the town to do that. We have the right to make that decision.
All right, I understand that, but what's the point of putting it in subdivision regulations?
That I can't answer you, Cindy. I'm just
Okay.
making
I
a
would say-
random
Okay, all right.
recommendation. Yeah.
You mean
What was that,
private
Mike?
streets in general?
I would make the statement that that is just so that the general public, or whoever wants to do private roads,
Okay, yeah, I hear you.
it's right out there in front of it.
Yep.
We're almost
Jack-
there, guys.
That concur with you there, Cynthia?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. No.
I'm not sure why I made this note, but I'm sure I just didn't like some language. Any public improvements, any improvement, facility, or service proposed by the applicant for conveyance to and acceptance by the town. I don't know why I made that note. I must have changed something that looked stupid. I'm just going to assume that's the case.
Nice.
It happens. All right. Some of this stuff I'm not sure we can actually resolve tonight because I think we actually have to look at some of the road standard stuff. I'll read it anyway, give you guys some food for thought. Residential subcollector street, any street or highway that provides frontage for access to lots and carries traffic of adjoining residential access streets. A residential collector street is designed to carry somewhat higher traffic. See, this is a sloppy definition because it's defining something and then defining something else. A residential collector street is designed to carry somewhat higher traffic volumes with traffic limited to motorists having origin or destination within the immediate neighborhood. This is terrible.
These are all new. Is that why this is purple here or whatever color this is?
No, these are in the existing subdivision regulations.
Oh.
So the question where they're highlighted, well, there's a number of different questions in there. That's what's in the margins. So in some cases, it's we need to align it or check our intent. This refers back to categories of streets that are referred to in the provisions for building roads, and it's got different categories. So when I initially read this, I made this note, this definition is probably fine, except as I'm reading it now with you guys, it's not fine. Because a residential subcollector street, any street or highway that provides frontage for access to lots and carries traffic of adjoining residential access streets, okay, that's fine. But then it goes on to define things that are not a residential subcollector street. This is different. This is a residential collector street, not a subcollector street. What's it doing in here? So I'm just gonna.
So what point do you feel that you need to, do you think it should be eliminated or changed?
Well, I think probably we're going to have to make a decision about, this is part of the reason I actually like definitions at ends of documents instead of the beginning, but I think probably we're going to have to make some decisions after we talk about the provisions.
Okay,
But like this does not belong in the definition for this.
Right. Almost like you need two definitions there. I mean,
Right,
one for a
so
subcollector and one for a residential collector street.
Correct. So in fact, let me do this. I'm going to add this note. New comment needs separate definition. And then the applicability of it is something that we'll probably have to decide after we look at the provisions of building roads. That's all subcollector. Yeah, and the rest of it is appropriate. Okay. Re-subdivision, this was one to align to the definition in zoning regulations. So Cindy, you want to take a look at re-subdivision in the zoning regs and see if we're consistent here?
Yep. I moved away from there. Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, wait a minute.
change-
No, no, it's not, a change in the map. No, the further division of lots or relocation of lot lines of any lots or lots within a subdivision previously.
So they're different?
approved. Yeah, they're different, yeah.
Okay, so I guess that means I didn't get as far as I thought I did. So I'm gonna, well, I've already got that here. So I'll know to go back. Do this. Pain in the ass. Okay, right of way.
That's totally different too.
Okay,
Well, wait a minute, wait a minute, I guess not any of the following, that portion of land made available for the construction, oh, okay. Yeah, it's just aligned wrong, that's why. B, the parcel of land between, yep, and C, a narrow. Yep, okay, and
Okay,
D,
so we're
yeah.
good there.
Yeah, we're good, yeah.
Okay. Secondary use, a use in addition to a primary or accessory use. A secondary use is only allowed when specifically authorized under these regulations. My note here, not sure how useful this definition is unless a clearer distinction is made between secondary and accessory uses.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
Well, you don't have
no.
secondary use in your regulations, so, in your zoning regulations.
Yeah, I'm always confused by this one with accessory. I think it's is it suggest to be eliminated as what's going on here?
I kind of think so.
I feel like it's confusing.
What do you guys, what do the rest of you guys think?
I agree. I don't
I'll go
find it
along with that.
How about the other three out there?
I'll fourth it.
Yeah, whatever.
Alvin, you look like you're considering.
I'll take some ice cream, Cindy. You got any ice cream in there? Moose tracks.
There's
You need
plenty of
the
food in there.
Ice cubes and there's Tanqueray right there.
There's the Tanqueray. Look at that. Nice.
Oh, you guys are making me jealous. And you're distracting Alvin. I was asking Alvin what he thinks about secondary use.
Where is Alvin? We're having no.
Well,
I know I can,
Oh, there
it's
he
not
is.
being, a secondary use is not even defined.
It's not defined in the zoning regs, no.
okay. Away it goes. Another useless term struck. Double check
Solid
sediment
material,
for me.
organic, and- Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
Double check single family dwelling. I believe I did align this, but let's be sure. The
Single.
dwelling, which is,
All right, so you don't have single family dwelling in the regulations,
did we
but
take it
let's
out?
go into dwelling. Let's go into dwelling. Single family, a building that is a single unit conforming to the definition. No, it's totally different, which is, no, it's totally. What you have here is dwelling, single family, a building that is a single unit conforming to the definition of a dwelling, and which is the primary dwelling unit on a residential lot. What is that? Which is a single resident which is habitable area should be physically interconnected and is served by. Oh, yeah, okay, I can see the electricity, public water, and sewer. You don't have that here.
It's physically interconnected to what?
Yeah. I don't understand the physically connected part.
I think all that really means is that it's all under one roof.
Probably should say that then. Just kidding.
See what happens when you start writing regulations? You get all weird.
Well, the thing is too, is you gotta write them so people understand them too.
I think you can
When
just,
we wanted to, right? And I think we did a better job than what we had before. But the question is, which of these is better? So
Yeah.
let's each read it. I'm going to read this one, and then you read that one, and let's figure out which
Okay.
one actually makes the most sense.
Okay.
Single family dwelling. A dwelling which is a single residential, and that should be building right off the top. You don't define something by calling it what it is. A building which is a single residential unit in which the habitable area shall be physically interconnected and that is serviced by a single set of utilities. For example, electricity, public water and sewer, or private well and septic, etc. Now you read yours.
Okay, a building that is a single unit conforming to the definition of a dwelling and which is the primary dwelling unit on a residential lot. So a dwelling is a building designed and or used for human habitation on a solid bearing foundation. It goes on and on and on. You've got quite a bit of a definition here. You want me to read the whole thing?
No, I do not. Guys, I'm
Okay.
going to go out on a limb and say that this one is better and we should align that one to this one. Does anybody have strong feelings about that?
It's simplified.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's
I
I
agree.
agree.
All right,
Hey,
so let me
good,
add a note
unanimous on
here.
that.
Yep. So Cindy, make that a note for your
right.
memo.
Mhm. Right. Okay.
Okay. Solar access.
Right.
The first comment, which is mine, which is just totally obnoxious, but I'll read it anyway. The south wall of a structure being shade-free 75% of the time from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on December 21st of each year. My comment is that the winter solstice is not always the December 21st. So if that's what you're trying to hit, then that's what you should state.
Is that the
David
definition
Hell-
now?
That's in the subdivisions now. Everything in here, unless it already shows as having been edited, with a marginal comment or in red, is what exists now. David Held's comment is why is this even here?
Yeah.
Because it's not relevant to the way we build houses now.
Yeah.
And that is pretty much a synopsis of this comment.
I second that motion.
yeah. Well, I don't understand the word. It's solar access. What does that have anything to do with like south wall of the structure? I don't understand.
South wall of a structure. And
Well, you wouldn't put solar panels on the north wall. You
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
have any
realize
sun.
that, but I mean, I know people put solar panels not on south facing items. So why would, I just don't understand the word access. Are we talking about solar access, like walking
Well, it's what
around
they're
the
really
road?
talking about. What they're really talking about here is orientation, not access.
Yeah, that's what yeah, they're talking about orientation. Is right. Yeah, sure. I don't know. Can we delete this?
I'm gonna have to go along with David with Mr. Hell, and it should be removed. I don't think we really need it, in my opinion. But whatever the rest of the members here feel. But December 21st considered the shortest day of the year. You're lucky if we get sunlight from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock. You know what I mean? On a good day.
That's what it says.
Well, I think one of the reasons this may be here is to point the contractor in the right direction. Instead of putting the front of the house always facing the road, it should be faced south.
Mhm.
That's fine. If we want to, I agree with Alan. If we want to control it a little, at least provide guidance. First, it should say solar orientation, like Alvin suggested. And then we could list that, and maybe at the end of that, just say, that, what do I want to say here? It's kind of up for debate because I'm sure that other people, come up with a design and not all of them are south facing. Right? They could all be on a flat roof or something. I don't know.
Does this enter into some other part of a definition somewhere which would stop, or I don't know, I'll say stop a developer from blocking solar orientation of the house that's there? For instance, like come along and build a 4-story house on the 3-story house, whatever, on the south side of somebody else's house, and they wanted solar orientation, and I'm screwing it up.
I see what you're saying, Randy. Yeah, in that case, access would make more sense. But is that something, and I don't know the answer to this question, is that something that would be a zoning issue, or is that a building issue?
It can be both.
Well, it depends on the structure of the house too. How the
So
house
is this in reference to not preventing? There's another term for this too, isn't that? That's driving me nuts. There's a term they use. There's a term they use for it in actual city architecture when buildings cast shade on other buildings. There's a term for it.
Solar
Oh, that's going to drive me nuts.
How about blocking?
No.
Block it.
Yeah, but it's not as simple as that, of course.
Like
Shading?
interference or something?
That would
Yeah,
that would be up your alley, Brian, isn't it? With buildings, working in the cities and stuff like that with the schools. Where you get the best advantage of the solar.
Maximization?
I know what I have to look up. Yeah, I'm going to. So Randy brought up a couple of good points. One is if that is supposed to refer to not permitting one structure to to block essentially the passive solar for another building, then that might be something that is applicable within these regulations. The other point, which I think he raised at the same time, or it occurred to me as he was saying it, is if this term is not referred to, or we don't choose to bring up this principle in our revision, what's it doing here? So those are two different questions, but I've got those now and those notes, so that's my homework. Okay, guys who have looked at subdivisions in the past, is this helpful to anybody, this definition of street hierarchy? Street hierarchy shall include the following categories of streets first of all, it doesn't refer to the categories of streets, as determined by the Planning and Zoning Commission and maintained on a list prepared by the Commission and as contained in the road design construction section of these regulations. There are 4 accepted categories of roads within the town of Thompson, as defined and described actually, I added that to try to add some clarity, as defined and described in Appendix A, Road Design and Construction. For those of you who have referred to subdivision plans in the past, have you ever looked at street hierarchy in making your decisions? If it is a useful term, we'll figure out a way to make this definition useful.
Well, where's the list of streets?
Appendix A, Road Design and Construction.
So I've never seen any of this before. So again, dumb question here. Is street hierarchy like 4 different quality levels of street construction? Is that what the word hierarchy means here?
It's, yeah, it's 4 different levels of average daily traffic, I think is the main defining difference. So
Yeah,
when we were
okay.
looking at sub-collectors earlier,
Yep.
that needs to be broken up into sub-collectors and collectors. And then there's main arteries, and then there's whatever the 4th one is.
Oh, okay, I see, yeah, Appendix A.
Like, I can read the 4K, I have it right in front of me.
Go ahead, Alvin.
Collector Street, Collector Street, residential sub-collector street, residential access street, and residential lane.
Lane, yeah.
And each one of those is dedicated how many vehicles should be there on a daily basis. Collector Street, 500 plus. Residential sub-collector street, 251 to 500. Residential access, 101 to 250. And residential lane, 1 to 100. And number of lots served also is a category. Collector Street, 500 plus per day. Lots
No.
served, 50.
No, Collector Street is 50 lots plus. You're talking about
This
lots.
is number of lots served, 50 plus.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out how would you classify when somebody comes in for a subdivision? How would you assign those categories without having like a traffic study done on it? Like,
You see, I don't think, this is road design and construction appendix A. What they're really talking about here is not a cul-de-sac or even a subdivision. They're talking about a road that's heavily used,
Yeah, like a regular road. Yeah.
like a regular road.
Yeah.
Woodstock, Fabian Road, Woodstock, Fabian.
In other words, depending on the traffic load on that road, it will have
Yeah.
it will have a name for it.
That makes more
Like
sense
my
because
road-
that would require a traffic study to make a determination on how many
Exactly.
cars are going on there. That would make more sense.
Like I'm on Fabian Woodstock, and it's a main road from Massachusetts to Connecticut. And I know I have over 500 vehicles a day on this road.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only way you can really tell too is to do like the state does. They put that little thing across the road with the counter.
So are we saying that this actually is not part of subdivision requirements? Is that,
That's what I'm saying. It shouldn't be part of the subdivision. Not unless there's a
yeah,
cul-de-sac.
I kind of agree with that because, I mean, all those requirements that Alvin just listed, it's not a subdivision topic.
Yeah, it seems to me, and I found this baffling no matter how many times I looked at it, even knowing that there was an appendix for road design and construction. It seems to me that the only kinds of roads or streets or lanes or whatever you want to call them, rights of way that come before the commission are those residential collectors or sub-collectors or the
Correct.
cul-de-sacs, dead ends. So I don't know what possible use a description of the street hierarchy is to the commission.
Yeah.
But that's why I ask you guys who have looked at subdivision plans in the past, has this ever come up?
No, not that I know of.
No.
The only one that could give us a good answer to that, I personally think, would be Mr. Blackburn, because he's got, he's been on it for a long, long time. And his input would probably give us something to work with. But, for the amount of time I've been on and a few of us, I haven't seen this.
I think this would be.
Well, Randy just got out of his chair, so we got to wait till he comes back.
All right.
I think this would be more in the lines of somebody doing like 1,000 house subdivision or something, where they'd have main streets going through it. And
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
The
Yeah.
only thing is, as Alvin read Appendix A, as you go further down in Appendix A, it gives you maximums and minimums based on like residential lane, 1 to 100 homes, 1 to 100 traffic count, number of lots 1 to 10, but then it gives you maximum grade allowances based on residential lane of 10%. So it goes deeper in Exhibit A based on what category you're in. So I think if you looked at Exhibit A, it would kind of make more sense that they kind of tie together on what you can do with the construction of it. So it's something to consider. If you're going to strike all of those out of there, it impacts Exhibit A.
Well, Randy's back.
Yeah.
So in your experience looking at subdivisions in the past, what is the depth to which the commission has looked at the projected traffic counts or burdens or types of roads proposed through subdivisions? Because that's what would make this relevant.
Right, and I was thinking that, and I think the next subdivision we do that'll be the first.
There's our answer. There's
But
our answer.
just remember that when you're building a subdivision, you need some kind of a permit, and that information would go directly to the highway foreman. He would make those decisions.
Right. So I don't think we're suggesting that we need to strike Appendix A, because that does describe differing standards for different types of roads.
Right.
Road
But
traffic.
it seems road traffic, but it seems like that is the DPW's bailiwick, perhaps, not PCC's. Is that what I'm hearing?
They'd have to have the expertise for it. How can you suppose you can guess at average daily traffic on a road that hasn't been built yet? Some engineer might have a way to come up with a number, but in a town the size of Thompson, I'm not sure that that's anything to be concerned about.
My gut feeling on this one is that you don't need it here anyway. You don't need it in the definitions. I don't think you're really concerned with the street hierarchy as a term. And that, again, is not to is not to imply that the appendix with road design and construction standards needs to be struck. I don't see the relevance of this term to what you guys are doing. Does anybody feel strongly otherwise? I get the feeling that nobody does.
Well, I might be in a minority, but I still think it should be here again as a guideline, guidance. I mean, if a road is heavily trafficked, like my particular road, and a subdivision were to come in, is the road properly designed for that type of traffic?
That's an interesting, yeah, I see Alvin's point.
Yeah,
I agree
go
with
that
Alvin,
point.
because you know, that when they're designing it, they need to, you know, so the definition here is in here for street hierarchy.
Yeah,
When they go to Appendix A, it's calling them to Appendix A for the design.
I say leave it.
Yeah, I don't think it's hurting us by leaving it. I think we could.
Is the consensus all on approve on that, just to leave it? Doesn't seem like it's gonna
Like Randy said, we'll use it on the first subdivision.
Well,
You guys are
it's
all going to
always
be,
good.
you guys are going to be looking for it
We're
now.
gonna be pumped up for this one. What's the hierarchy?
Well, you know, you never could tell. There's always a first for something.
Be prepared, Cindy. That's the first question I'm gonna ask you. Cindy, have you looked at the hierarchy?
put a star by it.
I'm going to, just for that reason.
Oh, God.
Oh, last 2 pages. Let's see how quickly we can do this. You guys are all up past your bedtime. So am I.
I was past
Okay.
a long time.
I've been working for the town of Thompson since 8:30 this morning. I am
And you're,
completely exhausted.
and you're
I
one
gotta
of
make a
the,
phone call to my friend in Texas. She just called.
She got
All right,
phone?
I'm
That's
doing my
good.
best.
Yeah.
Well, that's, yeah. All right, I'm doing my best here. I think this is just a comparison, Cindy. Structure, anything constructed or erected which requires a location on the ground or attached to something having a location on the ground, including walks.
Well, ours
is-
is more detailed. Our definition is.
Okay, so
has like
I'm going to
6
highlight.
sentences. Yeah, it has like 6 sentences.
Okay, I'll fix that. Mhm. Subdivision, this is just a comparison. The division of a tract or parcel of land into 3 or more parts or lots made subsequent to the adoption of subdivision regulations adopted 2/3/1969 for the purpose, whether immediate or future, of sale or building development, expressly excluding development of municipal, conservation, or agricultural purposes.
Yeah, it's different than the one in our book and the zoning regs. It's different.
Okay. All right. Subdivision conventional, a subdivision design that is consistent with the provisions of the Thompson zoning and subdivision regulations, notwithstanding Article 4, Section 7. My comment is just, is this necessary? This is a subdivision, and this is a conservation subdivision. So the conservation subdivision is a special subcategory of subdivision. A conventional subdivision is not a subcategory of subdivision. This seems stupid to me, but maybe others feel differently. Also, I think this definition doesn't say anything.
Yeah, I don't know why it needs to be listed that this is the conventional one. What was the previous one? Non-conventional? I just,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just think
yeah.
that's,
I agree.
So in other words, delete it.
Yeah.
yep, that's why we ask.
Okay, that's subdivision cluster is different than in our zoning regulations. I mean, subdivision conservation is different in our zoning regs, so.
Okay, I'm highlighting. Topsoil, can you double check this one for me, Cindy?
It's different
Topsoil
too.
shall mean, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Apparently I did not get as far into this as I thought. I'm a bad, bad person.
Mhm.
Town road shall have the following definitions. Oh, I just had this one. So let me go back and read this. Town road shall have the following definitions. Any road listed on the map entitled Town Roads, Town of Thompson, Connecticut, prepared by the Connecticut Department of Transportation, as may be amended from time to time. Okay, that's fine. Any historic road which the selectmen, which I assume determine, so it's either select man determines or select men determine is a town road. My comment, if I were reading this, I would want to know what the standards are for the Board of Selectmen to make such a determination, even if it is a reference to an ordinance number in another document.
Yeah, I would
Meaning,
do that.
if I'm reading this casually, I'm thinking any historic road which the selectmen determine is a town road, so they can say anything is a town road. What is the, what is the governing standard? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah,
The word-
I would reference the ordinance.
Okay.
I would, Tara, my, instead of selectmen, it should be the Board of Selectmen determine if it's a town road.
Agreed. And then this other, okay. Check use for me, Cindy. I think this is the last page, guys. Then everybody gets to have a drink.
Yeah, no, it's longer in the zoning regs.
Okay.
We don't.
I'm looking
define-
at my own notes here. How does this relate to subdivisions? Okay, so I think that this comment from David applies to both of these, use conforming and use non-conforming, which is, how does it relate to subdivisions? Which I think is a valid question. When you are looking at subdivisions, you're not talking about use, really, are you? Or maybe you are. That's a question, not rhetorical.
Yeah, but you have to conform it to the current zoning regulations. Well, yeah, you do. So I don't know why you have either one of those in there.
So can we just say use? Because use is in our zoning regs. No, it doesn't divide it up into two things, use conforming and use non-conforming. Use, the word use is in the zoning regs.
Also, shouldn't our definitions say the use which is regulated by the zoning regulations?
Well, you're saying that this one doesn't align anyway, right? So we've got to align it.
Yeah,
Right, it doesn't align
it
with
does
this,
not.
but
No.
So am I correctly hearing that we generally agree that use conforming and use non-conforming are out of place in this document? Did I hear that, or did I imagine that?
yeah,
Both.
no, you heard it.
You heard it.
Okay,
Yeah, I think,
I'm on the delete key. Last
Yeah.
chance.
as long as you have the word definition use, which is above,
Yeah.
I think that's it. You can delete the other two.
But compare it to the use in the zoning regulations to the
Yeah,
definition.
yeah,
of
she
use.
Tara
Right.
highlighted that.
Yep.
Oh, okay, all
Yeah.
right.
And then what is this? Yard front, the area between the building and the front. I think this is the last one tonight, guys. The area between the building and the front lot line, extending the full
Yep.
width of the lot on the street,
Me.
extending along all streets. In the case of ambiguity, the commission may designate the front yard of a lot based on historic precedent and compatibility with surrounding properties. And my only note is, what?
Right. I mean, we're already saying in our building, in our zoning regs, you gotta have a 40-foot setback.
Yeah.
For any kind of structure, so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Is anybody else making any more sense out of this than I am?
The case of ambiguity. I love that.
The area between the building and the front line,
Oh, my God.
full length of the lot on the street. Extending it.
Love that. Based on the historic precedent and compatibility with the surrounding property. Oh, my goodness.
I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, like this second sentence is totally wackadoodle.
Yeah.
And extending along all streets. I mean, it's the street.
It's nothing to do with
So what do we have? Yard front, right?
extending.
A space,
Yeah.
okay. A space extending the full width of the lot between any building and the front lot line and measured perpendicular to the building at the closest point to the front line. I don't know if that's any better. This is out of the Illustrated Book of Development definitions.
Okay, so that's not out of the zoning regs.
No, it's just out of a professional book. And it has comments on it too, with comments, 2 paragraphs. I'm not gonna read that. I'll show it to you tomorrow, okay? How about that?
I like that. It's got 2 comments. That's good.
2 paragraphs of comments. So I'll show it to you tomorrow. How about that?
Which one you talking?
Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine why. I'm trying to imagine 2 things. First of all, what the hell the second sentence means, but why it's here.
I don't know why we just can't just go with the first one. The area between the building and the front lot line, period. End of discussion.
Sure,
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, that's what sort of.
it's gotta be there. That's it.
Okay,
Extending the
look at
full
that.
width of the lot line and in the front lot line. Yeah, that's sort of what
Okay.
this definition says.
Not yet.
Go one more.
You want
What?
to keep it? Do you want to keep that in there though, Terry? You left extending the full width of the lot on the street.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
that's kind of obvious.
Just say period now, right? So the area between that's it.
oh, look at that. That is so much better. Okay, guys, you did good work, and we only went a half hour over time.
Yeah, but we have one more.
Yeah, Tara, you got, Mr. Krugel's got one more thing.
Oh, Mike, I missed you. I'm sorry. It's because I
No,
can't
that's
see
it.
you.
The last one, the zoning enforcement officer, ZEO. You're defining the definition with the word.
Yeah, should be more defined. Should be what's in the zoning regs.
Okay. Yeah, that wasn't highlighted on this list, so
Yeah.
we just missed
Yeah,
it.
I happened to see that too. I thought that's pretty brief.
And that's
The
it.
zoning enforcement officer is the zoning enforcement officer.
Yeah. You know,
Duh.
I can't wait to bring up that hierarchy thing. I'm gonna.
Oh, here
Oh
we
my
go.
God.
You ain't gonna let that
I-
go.
I'm not. That's a good one.
Are we done?
I pity
Are we-
I pity the next person who brings a subdivision application in. Yes, we are done, guys. Good work. So
All
I will conform to my prior pattern. Before the end of the week, I would normally say tomorrow, but I'm so in the weeds. Before the end of the week, I will create the updated document from Articles 1 and 2, incorporating all of what we have discussed and the changes in the text.
Hi, Helena. Just
Next
about
section
ending.
will
Can you
be
hold on a
Article
second?
3. Oh, that was Gloria. Next section will be Article 3, and you're going to get 2 doodle polls from me. John, get your doodling pen ready.
No,
One,
You should call me back in 5 minutes.
one for our next session
Yeah.
in March.
I'll
for
call you.
this.
I'll call you when it's over. Okay.
Oh,
Article
Gloria, I'm
3.
muting you.
Right?
One for our next session for this, and one for the regs revision review memo that Cindy has. So I will send them on separate days so they're not totally confusing. And I will send those before the end of the week as well.
Just
Promise.
put down on the doodle pool right now, so I ain't gonna. All right,
You gotta,
go ahead, Tara.
no, you go ahead. You're acting chairman, sir.
That's what I was just gonna ask you. Are you all done, completely finished with what you need to say and everything? And any other commissioner comments? None? I do not hear none, and I will call this meeting adjourned at 9:30. Good evening.
Right.
Good work, everybody.
Good night, good night.
Good night.
Night.
Hey, like that, Brian. I didn't mind handling it for you.